Multidimensional Family Therapy webinar, Part 3. I've just been asked to, again, read some housekeeping announcements. You're asked to use your computer speakers or a headset for audio. If you have any technical assistance needs at any point, please dial 1-800-504-5379. During the webinar, at any point, please click on the QA tab under my photo to enter questions or comments. And this is really important because the questions are the best part, I think, and I appreciate all the great questions. So please keep them coming. This is the third and last session of the three-part seminar. You must attend all three sessions to earn CEUs. And after this webinar, you will receive an email with the course PowerPoints, a webinar evaluation to complete, which is really, really important so that the ATTC can get information about how to improve and for us, too, to improve our training and improve the webinars. So please do the evaluation. You'll also receive your requested CEU certificate and a link to the recorded sessions. So you'll get all of that. And so we're wrapping up today. We have talked the last couple weeks about multidimensional family therapy, and we've covered on our first session, we did a kind of an overview, sort of a thumbnail sketch of the entire model, but sort of in a broad strokes way. And last week we went into more detail about stage 1 interventions. And stage 1, as we discussed, is the way to create a foundation for change, to build the scaffolding that you'll need to request change from the people in this family that you're working with and this teenager and other people in the systems that influence this teenager's life. And today we'll finish with a lot of material. We're going to talk about stage 2, which is how we facilitate change or we request changes. And we'll talk kind of quickly about stage 3 work, which is at the very end when you're have done terrific work and you've helped the family make a lot of changes, and you're ready to seal the changes and exit, as we say, and launch the family into the next chapter of their life. So if we can go to the next slide, we will just get right into the business at hand and talk about stage 2, facilitating change. And what we'll start with is the adolescent domain. And you will recall from previous sessions that multidimensional family therapy has 4 corners of work: the adolescent domain, the parent domain, family domain, and extra-familial domain. And it's easier to present it sort of split up. But these domains, of course, are interrelated. The work is very much dependent on work in each system, and so we present it as if it's separate things, but really it's all very much of a piece. And so all these things are connected, and as you'll see. So stage 2, facilitating change in the adolescent domain. The work in stage 2, and I should have said too, this is really the heart of the therapy, and it can be anywhere from so if we start a case and we start stage 1 work for maybe a couple weeks, we'll be in stage 2 for probably several months. It's really the heart of the work that you do with families. And people often ask, what's the exact amount of time that you should have finished your stage 1 work, how many sessions or how much time, and really, of course, depends on the case. But essentially, when you feel there's a good solid relationship with the kid and the primary people in the family, parents or guardians, you feel there's a good alliance and that there's a reasonable amount of motivation, then you're ready to start stage 2 work. And we don't want to put it off until things are perfect with the alliance. That's never going to happen. So we don't wait for weeks and weeks to make sure everyone's completely on board. We don't want to wait too long to start requesting change and working on change. In fact, even in stage 1, we start to talk about change from really the very first session. We always want families to feel like we're going to get something done here in this program, in this therapy, that, as we've discussed, that it's going to be a different experience for them, and that we're going to work on things that are meaningful to them and really are the heart of what's been going wrong for them. So we don't want to wait too long. But stage 1 can take maybe a couple weeks or longer in some cases. But so we'll start stage 2 is a couple weeks into the case, and what we'll do with the adolescent is first to facilitate self-examination, and this is about helping the adolescent to think about and struggle with. I think of it as you're pulling them into or engaging them in an exploration of who they are, who they were, who they are, and who they want to be. And this is not just one session, of course. It can take many sessions. It really continues throughout the therapy. And it starts in stage 1, of course, because you're right from the start. You're getting their story, getting a sense of who they are. They're talking about what's important to them, their perspective on things, and their hopes and dreams for themselves. But in stage 2, it gets deeper, of course, because you've really established some trust, and they're able hopefully every session they're able to go a little bit deeper with you and with themselves. So you'll be asking them to really get honest and take an honest, sort of straightforward look at their drug use, the delinquency. For many of our kids in Miami, gang involvement, some heavy-duty stuff that some of our kids are, life-threatening things some of our kids are into. High-risk sex. Most of our kids are engaging in very risky sex behaviors, and in our projects, some of our projects we do STD testing, and many come up positive, and so we deal with that. That's actually a part of the model now. We have a module on risky sex and HIV prevention. You're also asking them to really think about their school problems, their school situation, and how they might be getting off track in school. Kids will be likely to say that my teachers aren't treating me fairly, or I just hate school. But we want them to really look at that, really look at why they're not excited about school, why they don't want to go, and sort of take stock and look, why are these problems happening, and then how these problems relate, because of course all these things go together, and we know that from developmental psychopathology research. This is a syndrome of problems, and they're not isolated. So we're helping teenagers to look at these things that are happening and think about how they're related, and how they're related to also what's happening in the family, what's happened over time, and help to start linking these things. So these are obviously conversations that you're having, and you're spending a lot of one-on-one time with them. The other thing that we'll want to do specifically to look at their drug use and help get them to a really honest, straightforward place about their use is we use drug screens. So we have urine screens that they take. We'll take a urine sample and test it, and so we know if they're using, and we don't have to spend time debating or guessing. And we'll present that to kids as just a standard part of our program, similar to if you go to the doctor. The doctor takes your temperature, because the doctor doesn't want to be guessing if you have a fever or high blood pressure or whatever else that the doctor's testing you for. So we'll present that very straightforward in the first session about drug screens and why it's important, and how it helps us to get to the business at hand, so that we don't want to waste time. And what we really want to do know all the time where we stand. We want to know what's happening for the kids so that we can address what the problems are. So we'll use the drug screen, and every week we'll know, roughly where they're at with their use, and be talking about it and relapses and what's been behind that, and what are the consequences of continued use. So when we talk about the drugs, and we'll look at this in a second, but we want to just look at it in a very matter-of-fact way. We look at it in terms of consequences that they've had, things that are currently happening in their life, and help sort of link that up about the consequences and the use, and of course how those consequences are sort of derailing the track that they want to be on. So looking at risks for what could continue to go badly for them if they're continuing to use. And this is, the idea here is it's actually similar to MI, which we talked about the other day, that we're developing discrepancies. So it's a very similar thing to what you'll do in MI, that the kid has already told you, these are the things I want for myself. I do want things to be better with my mom and dad. I want to get through school. I don't want to fail. I don't want to drop out. I want to get either a GED or a high school diploma. They might have visions of what they want to do as a career even. And some kids may say, I want to go to the Army, or I want to go to college, and I want good things for myself. So then you're just developing discrepancies. So those things that you've said are important, which we've talked in depth about, hopefully, they don't match up with the things that are happening related to your youth, or related to the problems in school, and even related to the problems at home, because you got to make it with mom and dad to get through high school. It's not going to be so easy, sort of living on your own, and so you got to make it work at home. So you want to just develop a discrepancy between the things that they've said are important and what they are currently engaged in, and what they're choosing, basically. So the last point there is about, and this is critical, is when kids are in a program, when they're faced with having to make changes, and especially when it's not so much that they want to make changes, but that court has ordered them to treatment, or their family is on their back, or school's on their back. We always want to explore ambivalence about change. So why is it hard to give up the lifestyle, in Miami, the sort of the culture of the streets, or the gangs, the friends, the life that they've been living, and what's hard about giving that up? What is the pull to even if they want to do well, and there's a part of them that wants to give up the drugs and get things, sorted out at school and make things better at home, that there's such a strong pull for the life on the streets, basically the drugs, the life that they led, and so you want to have really in-depth conversations about, and compassion about, why that's so hard to give up, what still pulls them, and what is compelling about that life, because essentially then you can get to what is missing for them by giving up the drugs, what's got to be in place for them to totally let go of the drugs and really take this completely new direction in their life. And sort of that's what we're asking kids to do, is to really have a whole new life, and not an easy thing. So we want to talk about ambivalence about change, the good things about change, of course, and what's hard about it, what's difficult, and what goes into it for them. So what are the barriers? And this is day to day. You don't want to stay vague, and you don't want it to be a surface kind of a conversation. You want it to be really as in-depth as it can be, going to details, and ask them to walk you through a day, walking home from or getting done with school, the minute-by-minute kinds of decisions that kids have to make. They have to walk down a certain road to get home. They got to walk by the old friends. They've got to, go by the old corner where they might have gotten the drugs, or go by the park where everyone's hanging out, dealing with stuff at home. So examine the barriers to change. Next slide. talk a little bit more about the MDFT framework on drugs and alcohol use. And this is critical. This is, you'll start this in stage 1, and again, stage 2, it just gets kind of richer and deeper, and you just have more time. And you're gonna want to be consistent with this kind of message. Sometimes it gets hard because you work with a kid and you make some progress, but they're still using. They're not. They don't seem to be getting it, and sort of you can get frustrated, and you don't want to lose this clear framework on the drugs and alcohol, which is, it's not a moral issue. It's not about being a bad kid. It's not even about you're making it's not even about so much that it's illegal, of course, which that's an issue, but the thing that the way that we think about drugs and alcohol for teenagers, and this is supported by lots of research and developmental psychopathology and addiction research, that for teenagers, very much, or the vast majority of teenagers, the addiction model or the disease model is not applicable. They're literally just not at that stage, even kids that are using heavily. And if we have lots of longitudinal research to support that actually even DSM-4 criteria for substance use disorders, it's not a perfect fit for teenage substance abuse, and it's not a helpful heuristic with teenagers because their lives are different. They're not at that stage of a serious physiological addiction for most of the kids that we work with, even heavy users. So essentially, and it's not helpful because that's what we want them to be able to look at is the pattern of choices they're making. And so we'll present drug abuse and alcohol abuse as it's a pattern of choices that over time certainly will become, if it's not already, a habit that's extremely hard to break. And eventually, yes, for many will be an addiction, and that they won't be able to sort of on their own or with the supports be able to break the habit. So we want them to understand that we're not taking a moral stand against drugs, or drugs are bad, or we're not coming down from a moral hilltop or a sort of like soapbox about it, but that what we're most worried about with the drugs is that kids, when they're on drugs, when they're using regularly, they're not available to themselves. They're not in the best place to think about themselves, to make decisions, to deal with their lives, to be present in school, to be able to deal with their family, to be able to be reasonable with their parents. And so, but most of all, that they're not available to think about what they want, about what's important. They're more likely to lie to themselves when they're using. They're going to be just not in the best place to sort of handle their life and take things as they come and make good decisions. So again, what we're trying to do in terms of the drugs and alcohol, we talk very straightforward about it. We use the drug screens. We bring the results right into therapy sessions, talk about what's happening with their use, and the bottom line there of developing discrepancies, that last point, the choices that they're currently making about drugs and the gangs and friends and school, decisions about school and dealing with their parents, versus what they really want for themselves, what they've said is really in their hearts, what's really important to them. And then we just want to help them see that those things don't match up and help them make the connection. We don't want to lecture to them. We want to help them come to those conclusions or sort of realize those things themselves, because that's the most powerful. That is much more powerful, of course. Lecturing to them is not gonna work. Doesn't work. So if we move on to the next slide, in stage 2, and still we're talking about the adolescent domain, what we'll do a lot of this work is what we call moving to action. And so there's all this focus on self-examination and helping the kid think about him or herself, and these family relationships and friends and school, drugs and delinquency. And so there's a lot of self-examination. And this is going to help for you with this kid, and, of course, bringing it into family sessions, that you want to help them develop sort of plans and strategies for how they can make changes, to make the changes that they want to make the changes that would be good for them, whether it is stopping the drug use, getting to school regularly, improving their grades, going out and getting a job, changing how they are with their parents or with their peer group even. So you'll sort of help them identify things that they want to change, and then how are they going to get there? How do they get where they want to be? And you can help them with this, of course. You can help them make very concrete, practical plans for how to make the changes. What we, of course, emphasize, which we talked about the other day, is we really want to break things down and make it manageable. Not take on too much, but help them take, probably one thing at a time, and things, of course, that are important to them, and help them break it down into small steps, the small sort of units of change that will help them ultimately get to where they want to go. And so you work out a plan. What are the steps that they'll need to take? So if it's something like getting to school on time, which for us, many of our kids, is a huge problem. We know about the sleep cycle with teenagers, and in Miami-Dade County, I think high school kids have to be at school at a crazy hour, like I think it's like 7 o'clock or 7:30. And so this is really, really hard for teenagers, and especially knowing what we know now about adolescent brain and the sleep cycle. And it's just hard, of course, for our kids that they're not motivated to go, and they're not jumping up and down in the morning to rush off to school. So if it were something like that, like getting up in the morning, getting to school, we might start with the adolescent alone. Okay, so this is a huge step just to get to school on time. Make sure you go. What's got to be different? And of course, for most of our kids, it starts the night before, not staying up on the cell phone or the computer until 4 in the morning, or of course not being out. So you just help them look at what's in the way and what's got to change to make that change, and then celebrate the small successes, reevaluate the plan, bring all this work, of course, into family session, because that something like getting to school on time isn't going to happen just the kid by himself or herself. There's probably going to be some things that the parents can do, but you in your one-on-one work can help to identify, well, what would be some of those things that mom or dad could help with, and that you start with a plan and just reevaluate how it's going, what's going well and what isn't working, reevaluate and change the plan as you need to. So it's a very, as it says there, a very problem-focused behavioral intervention. And we're looking for just very concrete, practical changes, and coming back to the plan as it's working and adjusting as it's not, as things aren't going so well. So the next slide, let's talk a little bit. This is really important, a really huge part of, all these are sort of huge parts of our work, but this is huge, that what we want to do in stage 2 also, as we're doing all these other things, is we want to prepare the adolescent to express their concerns, opinions, thoughts, and their feelings to the parents. And this you've started in stage 1, because even from session 1, you are helping identify some concerns that the teenager might want to bring to the parents, that really painful things or just things that are on their minds and their stories. A lot of parents don't even know the extent of the kids' drug use and delinquency, and we want all this out in the open, because that part of that is the motivation that parents will have to change their own parenting and their own interactions with the teenager. So the more that, of course, we can reconnect parents and teenagers, and the more that there can be an open flow and an open dialogue, that's a huge part of the medicine. That's going to be a huge part of change for this kid's life. So as it says there, the first thing you've already started to do from day one, help the teenager identify the issues and themes that they want to address with parents. Sometimes it might be parents are fighting a lot. The constant bickering and negativity between the parents is day to day a huge stress for the teenager. So they may want to bring that into family session, but they may not be ready to talk about that on day one. So it might take some preparation. Another concern that might be a common thing that comes up almost every case, a common thing would be trust. Almost all the kids are in some way preoccupied about trust, as are parents. So, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the family domain. But a lot of times kids will say, I want my parents to trust me. I want them to, of course, I want to have some more freedom, and I want them to trust me to be out with my friends and not on my back all the time. So that might be something. Or another thing that might come up, issues of loss, abandonment. My parents weren't there for me. They were drinking. They were on drugs. They were just not available. They weren't there for me. And that's something that a lot of times kids want to ultimately be able to talk with their parents about. But again, on day one, it'd be a rare adolescent that's just ready to go into family session and start to share their heart with their parents about these deeply painful issues. And so it takes some work. And that's why we do this one reason we do this one-on-one work with teenagers. It does take a lot to help teenagers be ready to do this. So your goal is to help the adolescent to really effectively communicate these issues and to come across in a way that's not blaming parents, but is really coming from a place of, this is what's been painful for me. This is perhaps one of the reasons why I've been out on the streets, or I've been with my friends. It's very difficult for me at home, or I just feel a lot of pain at home and in relationship to you. I don't trust you, or I have so much hurt from what's happened over these years. So if the teenager can start to communicate these things, it's very powerful for parents, and it's one of the important pieces of influence that helps parents to look at themselves and respond to the kids. And then, so the third thing there, you help them decide what they want to say to their parents. So you may identify lots of different things, or a few different things, and they may, of course, just like anything else, you don't want to overwhelm them. That wouldn't be helpful. You might want to just start with something that's not a hugely painful thing, but you might want to actually just start with, here's what I've been up to. This is what my life has been like. You might want to just start there, and they may say, a really great thing is if they can actually just start to open up about their drug use and about the possibly some of the dangerous things that they've been doing, and this, which is an eye-opener for parents and helps to motivate parents to increase their monitoring and other things. So you might just start there. You might just start with the teenager to share kind of their story, a little bit more of the detail of their drug use, the things they've been doing with their friends, and then you'll, as it says, number 4, give them lines and rehearse. So they'll say, here's what I think I'm ready to talk about, and you might have them practice with you. Well, how would you say that, and what would be hard about talking with them about that? What are you worried would happen? What might come up that would shut you down if you were talking, and what kind of response from your parents would be helpful, and what kind of response might make you shut down a bit? And then if I'm in there with you, how can I help you? How can I kind of keep you from shutting down and keep you from getting angry or storming out? Or so you just want to talk about what might come up that might be difficult. And then the last point there, number 5, give them confidence. So if you did a little role play and a little practice with them, rehearsal, they're hopefully going to feel like, oh, I can, well, just even having talked about it with you, but having a little practice with it is hopefully going to help them feel empowered and give them confidence, help them feel like you are, of course, you are going to be there. It's not just going to be them with their parents. That's the whole idea. You'll be in there with them. So give them support and let them know, I will be right there with you, and I'm going to help you, and I'm going to help your parents listen. I'm going to prepare them too so that they can really hear you, and I'll encourage them just to listen and not to come back with a big lecture or whatever they generally do. So, that's again why it's so important to talk about what the adolescent is afraid might happen if they start to talk about these things. So, those are the main things that we do in stage 2 adolescent work. And before we go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about, I'll go to some questions that we've got here. And again, if you've got questions, please feel free to write those in the QA box, and those pop up and I can see them. So there's a question about, do you link delinquent behavior to mental health diagnosis as well as drug use? And sure. We're focused on delinquency as well as drug use, and if we've got a knowledge of, and we've done assessment evaluation, and we have a kid might have ADHD or depression or some anxiety, sure, we're trying to look at the whole picture. So all the factors that might be going into the difficulties they're having, and certainly at school, I think that might be where it becomes most relevant. Is we want to make sure if a kid is really struggling in school, of course, an ADHD diagnosis or a depression where they're just not motivated and really having a struggle just to get out of bed or super anxious. So the mental health issues certainly come up those are very clearly relevant in terms of the school domain. And certainly, too, with drug use as well. Like if you've got a kid, certainly depression can be a self-medication thing for dealing with, so people may be using as kind of a self-medication for depression or even for anxiety. So a lot of kids will tell us that the using helps them in certain ways. And those are all the things we want to know. So we want to know when we're asking about the drug use, like, how does it help you? And a lot of times kids will say, actually, the drugs do better than my medication to help me focus or to help me get out of bed or whatever it is. So sure, we'll really want to get to the whole spectrum of what they're dealing with. Someone has a question. You say that drugs and alcohol are not a moral issue or a disease. Therefore, what is the MDFT opinion that drug and alcohol addiction qualifies as a disability? Sure, we're of course not going to debate, and it's great that the American Medical Association recognizes it as an addiction. So that's really not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the most helpful way to address drugs and alcohol with kids and with families. And so we won't focus so much on you have a disease, you've got absolutely no control in dealing with drugs and alcohol, because for most kids, it's not at that point yet. So the more helpful approach that we've found, and again, supported by lots of research, is kids that are in initial stages and starting to use regularly, that they're developing a habit, a pattern of using that ultimately is absolutely going to be in the end and in the later stages truly an addiction. So it's actually more helpful, we've found, to present drugs as an issue about their health, as an issue of how are you taking care of yourself? How do you see the using? How does it help you, and how is it getting in the way of what you want? So we're not going to debate that about if a family, for instance, is perhaps in recovery and that's even a kid might say, no, it really helps me to say I have a disease and I'm powerless, and they really resonate with 12 steps. That's great. Like we're certainly happy to we support kids going to meetings and going to 12-step, parents or kids going to 12-step programs. But in our self-examination work, what we really want to have happen is for the kid to look at what's the meaning and the context of the use. So, because we want a really deep discussion of that. Okay, so there's a question. This model is person-centered and has been used by drug courts. Can you tell me where and who I can talk with about things like participant agreements and setting agreements in line with this type of clinical service? If the person that emailed me that, let me just send me an email. We're going to have my email. I gave it to you last time. It's cro@med.miami.edu, and we'll have that in your follow-up email. So you can email me directly. But I can certainly put you in touch with people who we've done MDFT and drug courts and just the formalities and procedures and policies with that. So email me that question, and I can help you get in touch with those people. There's another question. What happens with a kid using heavily may require detox? Is that done in outpatient or inpatient? And yes, absolutely. So everything that I've said about kids, that it's not a disease, that doesn't mean that kids can't be very much out of control in very dangerous situations with their using. Many of our kids over the years, have had need for some stabilization or for a residential program, despite our best efforts. So yeah, none of that is meant to say that our kids aren't in serious situations with the drugs. On the contrary, so we do have in different locales. We have in Miami, we have a crisis stabilization where they can go to essentially detox and get stabilized and have psychiatric evaluation, and they can stay for up to 21 days. So that we encourage strongly, because you can continue MDFT while the kid is being sort of stabilized, and we can actually, even in Miami, we can actually bring families in and continue our work, and it's great because then the kid is getting evaluated and might get time to stabilize on medication for psychiatric conditions. So, absolutely, that's a really important link to, and it helps because it's very beneficial. You can continue everything you've been doing and that's taking the kids sort of out of a really out of control cycle. And so usually that's a good, that usually works well. There's a question here too. What do you do if the adolescent can't refrain from drug use or experiences physical withdrawal when they try to stop? How effective is the therapy if the adolescent continues to use? So yeah, that's a very good question. You might have a kid who, sometimes this happens even when kids are motivated to use and they just really can't stop, and they do. Certainly, some of our kids do have a kind of a physiological dependence in terms of like not being able to get off so easily. So actually, the previous question is related here. What we'll do if that's the case is we'll try to work in terms of a short-term stabilization, and that, I know not everyone has that, so we have a special circumstance where we are. But if you can get a short term where they can just kind of get out of the kind of the clutches of the other influences and to have some time off of the drugs, and you can continue your work, that goes a long way. So that's the best, is you can do a short term. So just like we were talking about. Okay, super questions, and I know it's it's complicated because every case is different. But we'll move on now to stage 2, facilitating change in the parent domain, and this is going to be your work that as you're doing everything else, you'll be working one-on-one with the kid, all the work you continue to do, and you're working in your family sessions. And this is the work with the parents. Most of this is just one-on-one parent work and or parents together as a team. So the first slide there about stage 2 parent domain is we're facilitating change. We're supporting parents just as human beings, even separate from adults. Separate from parents. So they're adults in their own right, they're people, and they have, of course, their own concerns, their own lives, their own stresses, the things that worry them day to day, even separate from being parents. So we want to make sure that we're attending to those things. And I mentioned this previously, and we were talking in stage 1, that parents may not really want to talk about these things. And therapists, it's an easy thing to not go to because many of our cases, a lot of crisis and a lot going on, and you sort of like, you're very focused on the teenager, right? Because like teenagers the one in trouble, but we don't want to skip this work because it can backfire if you don't spend enough time on just the functioning of this person, this parent, and as an adult with their own life. So assess things like how much support they have, are they taking care of themselves, and parental self-care is it's a theme in the vast majority of cases, especially the cases lower income and disadvantaged, tough neighborhoods, few resources, and these parents juggling lots of work, and maybe they have other kids, they may be taking care of other people in their family and their own parents. So it's a huge focus of our work is to make sure parents really are taking care of themselves. Are they getting the services they need? And we can help, of course, to make appropriate referrals. But we go beyond just making a referral. We'll talk about the extra-familial work, but a big part of that is to really make sure parents are getting to their appointments, and if it's at all possible, with case management support, to take them to mental health counseling or health medical care, housing, child care, immigration, all those kinds of things. Anything we can do to help them alleviate the burden and focus on their self-care. And many of these parents, it's sort of the last thing that they think about. There's so much else they have to deal with day to day that they can put their own health, their own well-being, and the last priority. And we always want to come back to, but if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't do anything. Then you really can't be there for the teenager, for any of these people in your life. And you've all heard the thing on the flight that the flight attendant says you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then put it on the kid that's sitting with you. And for many of these parents, it just doesn't make sense that they just wouldn't do that. And so you have to spend some time with that about the importance of self-care. So the second bullet says you need to take care of yourself. You can't be a good parent or the best parent you want to be if you don't take care of yourself. Focus on the parent's needs and really who they are, who they want to be, because everyone wants to be felt, everyone wants to feel that they're heard and appreciated, and so we want to make sure parents sense that we care about them, not just as the parent of this teenager, but for their own, just for their own well-being. The next slide there, facilitate change in the parent domain. We're going to prepare parents for action. So there's a lot of similarities here of what we've just talked about with the adolescent domain. So this is slightly different, though, because we're talking parenting and changes that the parents need to make. But we're going to, first thing there, help parents identify what they want for their teen and their family. And this will help you in terms of helping them pick their battles or choose their battles. What's most important to them, but also what's most likely to have success or have an impact. They may have lots of things they want to change, and most parents do. And they may have many, many things that they're upset about and concerned about. But you want to go step by step. So I help them to identify what's right in front of you, what could really make a difference, and where would we have a likely success here. And you emphasize, again, the small steps create big changes. So there's maybe lots of things happening with the teenager, but the parents can agree to, well, let's start with the curfew. So this week, let's just start with making sure that kid who's being monitored by probation and has to be home anyway, and so the kid doesn't go to detention. But we want to make sure, we just want to deal with the curfew. So that's going to be the first thing we tackle. And that's an example of helping parents pick their battles. Of course, you let them pick their battles, but you help them just to see they can't do everything. You can't change everything overnight. Small steps will build on each other. And so you'll just help them identify things that are manageable and important, the most important things. Sometimes parents will perseverate on something that if they looked at it more closely, they would see, that's not the most important thing to have happen right away. And so help them prioritize and help them choose something that they can have some success and that will help them build. The second bullet is no matter what you're doing, no matter what kind of changes you're identifying that the parent wants to make, is ready to make, help them always link it back to the relationship with their teenager. Help them really always come back to, right, I'm crazy about the curfew because I'm scared to death when I don't know, when it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I don't know where my daughter is. And she's been hanging out with older guys, scary older guys. I'm scared to death. I'm lying awake at night. I can't sleep. And the things you want to emphasize are the parents' tremendous love and fear and the things that they're most worried about. Because, as we spoke last week and we showed that clip of the phone calls from the plane United 93, that's always the most powerful motivator, is if you come back to that, their love and their commitment, their deep, deep devotion to this kid, to making sure that whatever they need to do to keep this child safe. And so you're always coming back to that, the relationship and emotions behind that. So as we talked about last week, don't hesitate to stay in emotions, even when you're seemingly in the middle of problem solving and in sort of a practical mindset about, I want to help these people change their monitoring. You always want to come back to that, their love and deep commitment to the child and why they're doing it, because they get tired. It's hard work. It's trial and error. So you want to ground them in how much they love this child, how important it is for them to keep the child safe. And you remind them of that, because parents can lose sight of it in the middle of all the day-to-day difficulty and challenge. So the third bullet there, just like with the kid, examine barriers to and ambivalence about change. And so if you're starting to work with a parent around limit setting, so parents that haven't been really sort of consistent or some parents haven't been setting limits, and so it takes a lot just to sort of focus on that and understand that's important, and that will help the kids. So that sometimes just takes a while, some more psychoeducational things, getting them resources about parenting. But when you start to help them make the changes, you want to really help them look at why it's so hard to change. Why is it difficult to be consistent in the limit setting? And again, sometimes this can go to very deep emotional things. It can go to their own childhood, being raised by parents who perhaps were abusive, or they felt really rigid, and so it may go to very deep emotional things. Sometimes parents are afraid if they set limits that the kid will run away, and the kid may say that if you make me, and sometimes the kid does, I'll just take off, and then I'll be totally out of control. And so sometimes parents just have a lot of fear about setting the limits, or they're just overwhelmed, and trying to follow up and be consistent about the limit setting is extremely difficult with 3 jobs and other kids and that kind of thing. So spend time on this. This is, again, something you don't want to skip over. Examine the barriers and the ambivalence about change. There may be a part of this parent who is completely ready, and of course I want to make these changes and help this kid do better, and I love this kid so much I don't want anything to happen. But there may be another part of this parent that is simply overwhelmed, simply feels hopeless, feels like they can't make the changes. They feel like they failed, and so they don't feel like they can even try. So you want to go into this deeply with them. And remember, you're doing this one-on-one with the parent. That's why we spend time individually with the parents, is so we can really go deeply into these things and into the emotions that may be under them. And sometimes it's a huge relief for parents just to have someone acknowledge that it's hard to change, because they've been really beat up. They've been feel really beat up and blamed in many of these situations in the systems, in school and court. And so to just have someone sit with them and just like, wow, it's a tough situation you're in, and this is incredibly hard. You've done so much. You've tried everything. I can really understand why it'd be hard to kind of suit up and try something new. I can really understand that. And so that can be really powerful, and it can just be a relief for parents to be able to sit for a little while in how difficult it is and what the barriers might be. So, of course, identifying the barriers to change is going to help you as the therapist to address what might be in the way for the parent to make the changes, to become more, just more effective in their parenting, more, as we say, authoritative, more involved and warm and firm and consistent. So the next bullet, assist them in establishing supports that will help them be successful. And this goes a lot to the extra-familial work. Sometimes you yourself as a therapist can give them guidance in terms of we have lots of websites that are really great that parents love, and there's resources that we give them, and there's a great book. So there's books by Larry Steinberg, who's one of the foremost world experts on adolescent development and parenting, and we may give parents a copy of one of his books, and the principles of good parenting, so there may be things that we give them, but it's also work in the extra-familial domain to make sure they have every possible support that we can garner that will help them be effective, reduce their burden and stress, and help them just feel a little more confident, a little more that they can get up, each day and try something new. Just like we've mentioned, educate about parenting and development. And there's just many, many resources, really great resources for all kinds of parents. We have stuff in Spanish. It's I know not every family has email access right at their fingertips, but there's a lot of websites there's a website that Parents the Anti-Drug, and it's just designed for parents. It's a fabulous resource from the Treatment Research Institute, and the Partnership for a Drug-Free America. And so there's many, many resources, and we don't want to take for granted the parents are going to find these things themselves. So we'll offer them to them, spend time with them going through a website that, like the Parents, the Anti-Drug, it's a fabulous website and interactive. It's got stuff about teenage brain and drugs and really fabulous. And so we'll walk them through resources like that. If you have pamphlets, or you might take a chapter from a book, or anything you think that's helpful, you might not just hand it to them and hope they read it, but you might spend some time in the session. Let's go through the principles of good parenting. Larry Steinberg's got a whole book on the 10 basic principles of effective parenting. And they're things that we may think are obvious or common sense or take for granted, but they're not. They're things that we all learn from. Even I read it over and over, and I still take things from it that I don't notice before. So educate them about parenting, and of course, as we talked about previously, about adolescent development, not just the brain and how the different parts of the brain are in evolution, but also just adolescent development and how things are different for a 14-year-old than they are for a 17-year-old, and how parenting is very different for the little ones and for those that are ready to launch into young adulthood. So spend time on that, and the last point there, the more that you provide them, the more time you spend with them, the more that they'll feel empowered. So I think sometimes therapists think, oh, I don't want to disempower them by giving them all these things, and like I don't want them to perceive that I think they're incompetent, but it's not that at all. Actually, parents are very, very appreciative when you can provide them something practical. They feel much more confident and empowered. And so we just had a lot of parents tell us that something that we thought was sort of a straightforward thing might be a pamphlet or a website, and that it really, really helped them, that it just, things clicked for them and helped them piece all these things together. So all of these things are going to help prepare parents for action. You're going to spend a lot of time on these things. So a lot of one-on-one time with the parents and the parents together. So the next slide is about the parenting teamwork, and this is again just kind of like a whole webinar by itself. The parenting teamwork refers to parents that are married and happily married and have great relationship, as well as parents that are separated or might have been divorced and not spoken for many years. It can be a grandparent, a grandmother, and a mother trying to parent together, or even sometimes we have, it's not infrequent, we have a parent who's got an older sibling that the parent relies on because they have to, and so essentially this parent and like kind of young adult sibling who's in the house is really the parenting team. So and sometimes we have many people involved because you've got divorced parents who are remarried, and so you'll have like two families with parent and a step-parent. And so there was a case that I was helping in a training situation in Canada, and it was a great case. It was a really interesting case. Most of the work, because it was a young teenager, most of the work was actually just sorting out this complicated parenting system, because it was parents who had been divorced, and the father remarried and the mother remarried, and this kid was young and sort of already in a lot of trouble, and the bulk of the work in this particular case was what really changed this kid's life was this therapist just helping these parents, these four parents, and they were all four extremely involved. It wasn't a case where the step-parent didn't have much of a role in the parenting. All four parents were very involved in parenting this kid, and it was complicated. There were just a lot of, there were sort of still past hurts from the divorce, and a lot of stuff had to be just dealt with and ironed out. And it was a great case. The kid did really well. And I always think about that case in terms of the parenting team, because it's complicated. It's stuff, again, if you don't deal with it, can come back to haunt you, because you can be doing seemingly great work, and then say if in that case you just had the biological mother and father, but you didn't have the step-parents in the room, you could be doing great work and really good work with the kid and doing good family sessions and work with the school, but if you didn't have the step-parents there, you could be missing really important dynamics and also just really important details day to day, because the stepmother in that case was very much responsible for the day-to-day with that boy. So if you hadn't involved that stepmother, it would be nearly impossible to make good progress. So we had these crazy sessions with all four parents and just hashing stuff through and like dealing with each other. They had never done this kind of work, of course, because it's really difficult. And so this therapist just did great work with this family. And so that's an example of you've absolutely got to strengthen the parenting team. And sometimes you'll start a therapy case and you might just have one of the parents, and they may say, oh, nope, dad, biological father, he's just hasn't been involved, and you'll never be able to get him involved. I'd be willing to, but you'll never. There's no chance. He's just not involved at all. And even if you ask the kid will say, no, my dad, he'll never do it. But we don't want to just take that. We don't want to take that for granted. We don't want to just make assumptions that we can't get that dad involved. And usually, I'd say more often than not, if you make the initial steps and you do what we talked about last week in the stage 1 with engagement and motivation, if you reach out to that parent and you do similar work with the parent that's already engaged, and how would you feel about doing some sessions and dealing with some of these issues with the parenting and how to parent better together, more often than not, you can bring parents together. And remember that, of course, the thing that will bring them together is their love for their child, that they've got a child together. They will always, in some fashion, have to co-parent that child, that they both love and care for this son or daughter, and that's the thing to hold them in, that love and commitment, their desire to see their child do better, to save their child, that's what will bring these parents together, that otherwise sometimes couldn't be in the same room together, that they've had such a difficult time. And so we ask them, will you be able to, can we put these differences aside, and could you just, and sometimes they might not be willing to come into, physically the same room, but you might be able to get them on the phone, do conference calls, encourage conference calls between them. But, of course, the best is if you can get them together and you're dealing with this sort of inspirational, the motivation behind it. You put aside your differences to help save your child, and you're addressing their conflict as practically and behaviorally as with any other parenting issue. So same stuff we just talked about. Help them work out a plan. Okay, so here are some points of disagreement, or here's where things tend to break down, and maybe it's set up that the kid isn't monitored well in one of the homes, or that their rules are very different, so the kid can get away with things more when they're at their mother's house or at their father's house, and whatever it is that you help them identify where does it break down? Where are the places where this kid's at risk to be out and using and getting into trouble. So you help them identify those things and then come up with a plan. How can they work as a team, support each other, where sometimes one parent feels, and this is common, that one parent feels that they're the bad parent, that they're the one who is strict and does give consequences, and that the other parent, it's party time when the kid's with the other parent for the weekend, or so then the parent who's strict and is on top of stuff feels bad because the kid can use that kind of thing, that it's no fun and they'd rather be with the other parent. So you want to deal with those things just overtly. Put it out on the table, help them kind of go back and forth, and this is enactment, like we talked about last week, that you're helping them hash things out and deal with things and address whatever the disagreement is and conflict is. So you'll very much a trial and error framework that just as all the other things we've talked about. It's very small steps. You celebrate where you see some progress and highlight it and amplify it, and always come back that it's really hard. I would not ask you to do this if there was another way, but there isn't another way. Only the two of you can do this, and neither of you can do it by yourself, because both of you are parenting this child, and there's just no other way. It really is up to the two of you, and I can help you, and I can help you come to some better solutions and better ways to deal with each other. But ultimately, it is the two of you that know your child and love your child and can come up with the best possible solutions. So, and so you just back and forth with them and working out stuff and seeing how it goes and coming back, refining your plan, making adjustments. And so, it always seems very hard. I think when therapists start this work, it sometimes seems insurmountable. But we've had very, very good success in this area. And sometimes in trainings, I think this is where therapists are most surprised that it's a very different way of working. It's stuff they've never really done before, they've never tried, and they have these great breakthroughs, or they see, oh my gosh, if I hadn't worked in this area, I wouldn't have made the progress that I've made with this boy or with this girl. So it's a tough area of work, I think, but it's very, very worth it, very much worth it. And usually parents will give us that feedback too, that they'll say, I wouldn't have wanted to do this, but oh my gosh, like what a difference it makes. So the parenting team, and again, whoever it is, it can be many different constellations, but it's really critical. So we'll go to the next slide, the parent domain, helping parents communicate in a new way. So just like we prepare the teenager to come to the parents, to come to family sessions with their story, some details about their life, how they've been living, things on their mind that they've not shared before, or things they want to go deeper into with their parents, and most of all the concerns, the things that have been painful or difficult for the teenager. So just as we're preparing teenagers to come to parents with these difficult things to talk about, we want to prepare the parent to hear what the teenager is going to come to them with. And one of the main things here is we want to emphasize with parents, one of the motivators here is that parents almost invariably will say either, I have no influence anymore, this kid's out of control and I have no influence, and or I don't know who this kid is. This kid's a stranger to me. I don't even recognize my own son, my own daughter. I don't know who this is. And so you want to use both of those things, that you want to know your son, you want to know your daughter. You want to reclaim the good relationship you had when things were not so out of control. Of course, you love your daughter, you love your son, and beyond, so that's obviously critical. They want to know this kid, but even going a step further, the way to have influence is to know the details of what is happening in your child's life. You really can't have influence unless you know intimately what's happening for this boy or this girl. You need to know about their drug use, about why they use, you need to know about these friends. You don't like the friends, but the friends are there. I mean, they're a part of this kid's life. The gang, I mean, this is a very real part of your son's life. And so in order to have influence, you must be willing and able to hear some things that are not going to be easy to hear. You really have to, take deep breaths and remind yourself, this is how I will reclaim this relationship with my son or daughter, and ultimately this is how I will help save my child's life. There's no possible way to have the influence I want to have unless I hear what's happening for my son or my daughter. And so you'll prepare them in this way to hear their child. So you may say, sort of like on that slide there, so if you want to have influence on your adolescent, you have to know him or her. And you may hear some things that are difficult and that you may not like. It's very important that you are able to hear about his or her world. So we're going to ask, especially at first, when the kid first is starting to open up and maybe just share details of his or her life, we want to help parents just to listen. Just to listen. So parents, it's really hard, right? Because as a parent, you want to jump in and make corrections and fix things, and if kids sharing stuff you don't agree with, you want to jump in and disagree. But we really encourage parents not to. That at the beginning, especially, just hear what's on their mind, even if you don't agree, even if it's extremely hard to hear. And you reassure them. You're going to have a chance to respond, and I'm going to help you to respond in a way that won't push your daughter or your son away. I'm going to help you. I'm right, just like you say to the kid, I'm going to be right there with you. I'm going to be there to help you have this conversation. And you really give them hope that it can be different, because they are trying, most of them trying to find out about what's been happening with their kid, but it doesn't go so well. It doesn't go so well day to day. So we offer them that I'm really going to help you do this. I'll really be in there with you helping. So, okay, and then so that's clear. So then you're helping the parents get ready for family sessions where parents and kids are going to talk about things that are really, really important, really sometimes painful, but very, very important, very, very core things. So then in the next slide, this is all parenting work, all the stage 2 parenting work, and in the next slide we're going to talk about how important it is to address parents' beliefs and attitudes about alcohol and drug use. So if you've got parents, many of our parents over the years we worked with have substance abuse problems themselves, and some are in recovery, so they've been down that road and found another way, which is really beautiful, and you can use that in many ways. But no matter what their situation is, you really want to help them look at what are their own beliefs about substances, and how are they conveying, what and how are they conveying to their children about substances. And sometimes parents will say, well, they know that I'm completely against it. They know, and so, but if you ask them, well, how do they know? And if you really help the parent get specific and get to the details, it wouldn't be clear. They would say, well, I yell and scream every time they get in trouble. But that's not necessarily a message that says drugs and alcohol it's not a clear message, it's not a reasonable, clear message that drugs and alcohol are not okay, and they worry me because I don't want to lose you. I don't want you to get off track like I did, or whatever the message is. So if you help parents look at like the message that they're sending and how they're conveying it, sometimes parents can see, oh, right, maybe I'm not completely clear in the message that I want to give to my child. Okay, so you help them to look at their own behaviors, their maybe drug use or maybe other high-risk behaviors, and encourage that, of course, if they can look at those things and say, oh, this is no good, so this isn't the model that I want to be for my child. I see how my alcohol or drug use is getting in the way of parenting, and sometimes we actually can do sessions where kids will come in and say, you know, I'm really hurt and I'm in a lot of pain about your drinking or about your drug use. So these things can have an impact. So we've had cases where these things have been discussed, and we've helped parents get into a rehab or helped kids deal with their pain directly with parents. So some of these things can be dealt with right in family sessions. But no matter what, even if they're willing to admit, yes, they've been in and out of rehabs, or they admit that they aren't ready to give up their using, we want them, no matter what, to still give a strong message that for the teenager it's not okay, that it won't be tolerated, it's not, that there are consequences for the use, and so that even if they aren't ready to stop, or they just have tremendously hard time stopping, you want them to have a very clear stand against the drugs and alcohol for the kid. Okay, the next slide. So this is each of these is huge. So the next slide is about really changing the parenting, and so the enhancing age-appropriate parenting skills this is all about helping parents become authoritative parenting. So not permissive and certainly not neglectful as some of our parents are, but and not authoritarian. So there's the parenting literature, the parenting styles that have been examined. The most effective parenting is parenting that's authoritative, and that would be parenting that is consistent, firm, predictable, and that there's also warmth and love and involvement and acceptance. So the authoritative parenting it's like the best of both worlds, that the parent is a good, effective parent on the kind of parenting skills side, but also very loving, very warm, communicates and expresses their love, so that the teenager is influenced in both ways, that influenced practically by the good monitoring and by the consequences for misbehavior, but they're most influenced by just the relationship, because they respect and love their parents, and their parents respect and love them. So they're just more likely to be in line with what the parents want. So what we're looking to do is to move parents from, some parents are authoritative, but they're just maybe have some gaps to fill in certain areas. But most of the time, parents do need some help to get to a place where they can be warm and loving and good monitoring, good limit setting, and consistent. So we're kind of working both of those angles. And again, this is all in the teamwork context. So it's one parent may be more permissive. That usually there's some version of that where one parent isn't so strict and might be more permissive, and the other parent then might have to feel some compensation for that and be a little more harsh. And so you want to help each of the parent find the most effective way, and then have the parents be working together to do all these good things. So monitoring, setting limits, being on top of the rules in the house, the consequences, positive and negative, and follow through. So parents can be great with monitoring. Sometimes you have parents who are fabulous with the monitoring, but that it's really, really hard for them to follow through on consequences. Or they might give a consequence that's really unreasonable, like grounding the kid for 3 months for something that was sort of a minor infraction. So you're helping them in all these areas. You wouldn't just look at monitoring because these things all go together. They're all really critical for a good outcome with the case and with this kid's life. So you'll be looking at you want to get to details. Don't just leave things vague with parents or with kids. So you'll want to know the details. If the parent says, yeah, I'm good with I'm really good with setting limits. I feel like I've really got a handle on that. And so ask them the details of that. Like, okay, well, on a typical day, or given the typical thing that happens where the kid's out late. So what exactly is the curfew, and what exactly are the consequences? Is the teenager clear about that? How do they know? Do they know what the consequences will be? And how do you follow through? Because it might be a parent that's got 2 jobs, and it'd just be hard. It'd be really difficult. So how do they do it? And so just make sure you get to details, not just leave things vague. And like anything else, you'll develop a plan to address the areas where it's not as solid, and of course work that out with the parents. What kind of plan they feel is going to be the best for them, for this kid, and then adjust as necessary. Come back, look at what might be a difficult part of that plan to change. Come back. How did it go? And also during the week, you can make phone calls about just a quick phone call. Hey, I know you were going to try to implement the new house rules, and so I was just really thinking about you today. How did that go? And did you get some resistance from the kid, and how did you deal with that? And so you want to use the phone too, and I probably haven't mentioned that enough, that it's not just the face-to-face time in sessions, but we use the phone all through the week to be sort of catching up and figuring out things that might have been difficult during the week, helping show support, and of course if there's a crisis, but not just if there's a crisis. You want to help follow through on all these different things they're trying to change. Okay, so let's take a few questions here before we go to the Stage 2 family. Okay, there's a question here, or a question about the author's name. I think you're asking about that one of the people that writes really great books and has resources for parents. It's Lawrence Steinberg, and that's Laurence, and Steinberg is Steinberg. He's a great resource and he has several books that are very accessible for parents and for therapists. So Lawrence Steinberg's work is very good. Okay. So no more questions about parenting domains. Some of that's probably pretty straightforward. So let's go to the next slide. So Stage 2, facilitate change in the family domain. And we're going to come right back to this theory of change and intervention called enactment. And this is, as we discussed last week and mentioned on our first webinar, this is the primary change mechanism. And the reason it's so powerful is that it's an experiential technique rather than just talking about change. You're actually right there with these people, able to create alternative realities. And you're able to work with these people together in the room to help them talk to each other differently, experience each other differently, and how they relate to each other being different. And also how they think about or perceive each other is going to change. So if you help people have a different interaction, which you directly are going to help shape, and you're going to guide and direct them to have these different interactions and conversations, they're going to think about each other differently. So their attributions will change. Their attitudes about each other will change. They may become more appreciative, more compassionate. They may just understand a little bit better where each other is coming from. And so as you do this, sort of day in and day out, because you're doing enactment virtually every session that you have people together, as you do this, over time and over these months that you work with these families, you literally shape a new way for them to be with each other and for them to think about each other, perceive each other. So it's a very powerful intervention and a way of thinking about change, and it's extremely, it's a beautiful thing, actually, as a therapist, to, each session you have, you can change this adolescent's life because you're literally changing their fundamental beliefs about relationships, because this is the primary relationship. So every session you have the possibility of changing basically their life. So it's really beautiful. It's very powerful. And therapists that train with us, it's a different way of working, and this is extremely exciting for therapists to learn this way of doing therapy. So it's very different. So, okay, so the next slide, this is basically all going to be about enactment and just different aspects of enactment, different ways that enactment looks. So in the next slide, you're going to facilitate parent and youth discussions, just like we talked about. You've prepared the teenager, you prepared the parent, and you're going to bring things right out into the open. You're going to bring conflicts out, disagreements, hurts, pain, disappointments. Put things out on the table so the family can deal with these things together. And you, as the therapist, you're going to help the adolescent and parent talk. You're the facilitator. You're not the magic bullet. They are the magic. They're what happens between these people is the medicine. Nothing that you know, insight that you offer them, nothing that you do in particular other than shape their new experience is going to be the magic. Their change is the magic, right? And so you're facilitating that. So you help the just like we talked about, the teenager is going to express opinions, complaints, concerns, desires, feelings to the parents. We want parents to listen, and as we said, not interrupt, not jump in and disagree. Certainly we don't want them to criticize and judge, because it's probably how things tend to go day to day. We want this to be different. We want this to be different and more positive. And then as the parent hears and sort of listens, we want the parents to respond in a way that's constructive. And we want them to at least acknowledge. They don't have to agree. We're not saying they have to agree with the kid says, because, of course, sometimes what the kid says sounds a little crazy to a reasonable adult who's been through life and has some maturity. So it's not that they're going to agree with everything, but we want them to at least to say, oh, I can understand why you see it that way. And, of course, acknowledge their pain. That's really the most important, is really for parents to hear and acknowledge the hurt and the pain that the teenager's in. That's what's probably most important. So the next slide, another aspect of enactment, the family work, is you'll facilitate age-appropriate problem-solving and negotiation. So help them to problem-solve. And remember, too, the foundation is going to be the reconnections that you've already helped them make. They're not going to, on day one, they're not going to be ready for really good problem-solving, because for most families there's too much hurt and sort of conflict and negative attributions and negative attitudes between them that are in the way of good problem-solving. So all that stage one work and this emotional reconnection is foundational to helping them do good problem-solving. But eventually you're there in stage two. Help them establish effective ways to problem solve. Improve conflict resolution. So that's just a fancy way of saying, stuff comes up day to day in the house, in the car, on the street, on the car on the way to session, or however it goes in school. And you help them just bring it out into the session, put it out on the table, and deal with each other about it. And move from the blame and criticism to things like loss and hurt and grief and disappointment and fear and concern. So you help them move to a place that's more productive, where they can express their views without the blame and fighting and criticism. So you're going to help them to negotiate about everything from curfew to homework things to perhaps decisions about school that kids want to maybe do something different than the parents want to make them do. And so help them talk these things through. They're going to work, you will help them work together to set certain limits and consequences. Okay, next slide. And all of this, so it'll all sound familiar because it's all going to build and be related to the individual work. So none of this is unrelated. It all sounds like we're doing different things because we're working with different subsystems, but it all builds on each other. The work you're doing one-on-one you bring it into the family session. So just like we talked about, address alcohol and drug use directly and productively. So the drug screen results that we mentioned, you're going to bring the urine screen results right into family sessions and focus the family on how serious the problem is. So a urine screen that, if it's as someone asked that question, what if the kid's not stopping? What if actually the use is getting worse? That's one thing the drug screens are really good for because you can stay on top of it. And sometimes then all of a sudden a screen will come up and now the kid's on a harder drug that they weren't using before. So then that's a good indication to us to say, there's something that we're not doing. There's something that we haven't gotten to because the drug use isn't reducing. It's actually sometimes it gets worse. You have to bring that out on the table, and then the parents and the kid together can talk it through. Well, what if the kid has a relapse? Well, what is this about? What might be going on? Drug use is not accidental or random. It doesn't happen for no reason. So we help the family together think about what's happening, what might be underlying the relapse, what's not in place. What haven't we done? What haven't we done in the therapy, or what haven't we all focused on enough to help this teenager? And the second point there, it's really critical. The teen is not blamed or criticized, but help the family mobilize around this ongoing puzzle. What are we not doing here? What's not in place to help Michael stay clean? What don't we have in place? And what haven't we addressed yet? And so sometimes a relapse, as we've talked about, a crisis or slip or relapse can be many times an opportunity. It can be an opportunity for parents to understand the drug use is more serious than they might like to believe. It might be that parents realize, wow, I really do have to change because despite all this therapy we're doing and all the work that my son or daughter is trying to do and these family sessions and all this stuff we're trying to do, it's not all coming together. And so this might be the impetus when they see the continued drug use. It might be an impetus for you as a therapist to help the parents get more motivated to change, to look at themselves and to change their parenting, to get more, to do better monitoring or do better limit setting. So the crisis or relapse is looked at as an opportunity to refocus and mobilize. The next slide, stage 2, our family domain work and enactment. So as you're helping them negotiate and figure out rules and consequences and helping the parents to institute new things in the home, you want to always help them come back and express why they're doing it. So in any kind of conversation about rules and parenting changes or things that they're trying to do differently, you always want the parent to invoke their love and concern and their commitment that I'm doing this because I love you. I'm changing in these ways because I can't stand to see you in such danger. I can't stand to the idea of losing you. And this will often come up, kids that have a parent who has been more permissive or perhaps actually substance abusing. And then the parent comes in and sort of getting themselves together and starts to do this really good parenting. And the kid says, I don't buy this, or this is uncool because you've been not a parent. Like, I've been parenting myself. And so you can't come in now, and now I'm 16, I'm living my own life, I've parented myself. You can't come in and parent me. And so it's especially important in those cases, which is not uncommon. It's especially important there for the parent to always come back to, I know this, I know it's a big change, and the reason that I'm doing this is to make sure that you have every chance in your life, that we just don't take any risks, that you destroy yourself with the drugs and with the violence and whatever they're into. So as the slide says, so the therapist will say, well, tell him why you are doing this. And you hope that the parent says something along the lines of, I'm doing this because I love you and I want the best for you. I don't want you to go to jail. I want you to be safe. I want you to have every advantage in life. And the therapist would perhaps then turn to the teenager and say something like, so, Gina, why is your mom changing how she sets and follows through with the rules? And hopefully the kid then would say, because she loves me, I can see that. I can understand that. Okay, the next slide, same idea here that we've talked about throughout, that in the family domain, all of these conversations, the enactments, whether you're problem-solving a seemingly mundane daily thing, or you're having a very deep discussion about family relationships, you always want to enhance love. So you're always on the lookout for openings or for opportunities to deepen the connection. Focus on the emotions, and it might be the painful emotions, but that's going to get you farther than just blame and criticism and conflict. And you always want to look for ways to support, enhance their communication of expression of warmth and love. And for family members in the midst of these discussions, look for opportunities to amplify and highlight their appreciation for each other, and for them to recognize how important they are to each other. So you as a therapist might just find a little opening and look and sort of highlight that or amplify. You might stop things and hold them still for a moment and just hold them still and say, wow, this is really amazing. 3 weeks ago, you weren't doing this together. You weren't talking to each other this way. There's just no question how much you love and appreciate each other. The extent of the work you've done in here, my gosh, there's no way you could have done that if you weren't so deeply committed to each other. And so you might comment on that or just ask a family member to share some of their appreciation or recognition of the others. So your bottom line, facilitate expressions of love. And this is, we keep coming back to, this is the powerful motivator. This is what's going to change, among other things. But this is the most powerful motivator for people to change their lives. So Stage 2, family domain, the last slide on the family domain, facilitate healing and development of trust. And trust is a major issue from the kid's perspective and the parent's perspective. Help parents to address trust as a core issue with the kid and how trust can be regained, because it's never overnight. And sometimes kids, they stop using and they want to be trusted right overnight, but that's not realistic because parents have been through a lot. They've experienced a lot, and they may not be ready to give a lot of freedom because they're not feeling totally confident about the changes. So help again, just like anything else, you're just putting stuff out on the table that basically this is not an overnight process, and help them talk about it. And teenagers also, too, many times have trust hurt and pain about not being able to trust their parents to be there for them, or maybe substance abuse histories and just other things that the teenager may need to talk to the parents about. And so just as with the other issues that come up, help them talk about it and talk about their hurt and their pain about it. And then in a practical way, well, what would be needed for the trust to be rebuilt? What would they have to see to be able to trust each other? Okay, so the next slide, we're going to launch into the stage two work in the extra-familial domain. And that will be about this work is about helping parents and kids become, mostly parents, but also kids, become increasingly more independent and skillful in how they are able to manage the other systems, negotiate with these other systems, become skillful, and of course to meet the needs of the family. So in the next slide, it'll go into more detail about extra-familial domain. You're continuing to teach when there's a need for it and guide parents about the ways to negotiate in extra-familial systems. You're available to troubleshoot if there are any problems. Some of this you'll help them do, but a lot of it they'll start to do themselves, and then you're just there to help them walk through any difficulties or challenges. And then if there is a more intensive need, and there might be something in the court or school or wherever the need is, you're prepared to be involved if in any way that's needed. So the next slide is sort of carries over. Then you check in with parents about how they're doing with their extra-familial tasks. Anything, the problems that they've encountered, they might have had a meeting at the school that you couldn't attend for some reason. And we also have a team system with a therapist assistant, which sometimes a therapist assistant can go. But even if you're there, even if the TA goes, you always want to follow up. How did that go for you? How did you feel? Did you feel like that went well? What came up for you? And provide them encouragement about the necessary guidance or support that they need to do this increasingly on their own and more independently, because you're going to be phasing things out a bit as you get into the very last stage, which is the very last bit we're going to talk about, which is stage 3, and we'll actually go to the next slide. The stage 3 is sealing the changes. So you'll have made hopefully lots of really great progress, and you'll see lots of great changes with the kid and the parent. And so in stage 3, you'll seal the changes. You're going to make the changes overt, and it's maybe the last couple weeks of therapy, the last few weeks. You're phasing out because you're not really needed as much, and you're emphasizing to the family all the good ways that they've changed. You have them talk to each other about the appreciation they have for the changes and the changes that they see. And then the second part of that is to assess the progress in a realistic way. It won't be perfect, but there will be an assessment of progress, and you make a plan to focus on the workable last things that you want to work on in the last few weeks of treatment. Examine what's been accomplished, and then take stock of what do they want to do? What would they want to do before they finish? You're going to set priorities with them, and you'll always, of course, help them accept it's not perfect, that it'll be rough around the edges. The last slide before we go to final questions, and we've got a little video to show how one of our cases ended, a really great case. So before we do that, just one more slide about sealing the changes. Of course, with this family that's ending treatment, you talk about the end of treatment, explore their thoughts and feelings about finishing, any apprehension they might have, and more often than not, they're very excited, and we lend them our excitement that this is so great, that they've changed so much. They're really ready for, anything that comes up. And so, just as we've said, seal the changes and make changes overt. Number 4, we do want to discuss potential challenges, things that we call bumps in the road, things that might come up in the near future, and how they might handle it. So how would they handle it if there was a relapse, or if they encountered some trouble at school? What would be the plan for what might lie ahead, how to deal with things that might lie ahead? And then lastly, this is really critical, so you may have finished pretty much everything you want to do, kind of the family work, the teenager, parent, and family, but there are loose ends with school, or there's a court appointment that's maybe a few weeks away. So you want to, before you finish, you want to make sure it's as solid as it can be in terms of the school situation, the court, anything that's still not totally tied up, and you can still be there, of course. If there's a court date in a month, you can, of course, be there and let them know you'll be there. But make sure it's just as solid as it can be in all the extra-familial areas. So, okay, we're just about on time here. We've got just about 15 minutes. I want to show a little segment of a family that we saw in South Florida, and it's a really beautiful example of how families come together and changes can be made in all sorts of dramatic ways. So in this case, which often happens, the biological parents weren't able to parent. So this boy's mother was a chronic, serious drug abuser and had mental health issues. So she really had never been a consistent parent, and so he'd been parented by his aunt. And his aunt had been disappointed and felt unappreciated, and a lot of the therapy had been about helping the boy come to terms with that his biological mom really couldn't parent him, and they of course will still have a relationship, and he loved her, but that his aunt was really his parent, and how to manage that and be appreciative and and so just sort of manage things with his aunt and accept her. And so a lot of this was the work of therapy. And in this last little bit, we show it's the very end of therapy. So it's an example of actually enactment, because the therapist is helping the boy and the aunt talk together. And you'll notice that she's encouraging them to talk, so that they're not so much talking to her, but she's encouraging them to talk. And they're really wrapping up therapy. So she's having this conversation and encouraging the boy to share some things with his aunt. And so it's a good example of how things can look at the end of therapy once you've gotten to some core deep issues and the family have changed how they see each other and how they relate. So we'll watch that and then just have a few minutes at the end for questions. So we'll go now to the video, and it's about 10 or so minutes, and then we'll come back just to wrap up. Okay. That's one of our favorite clips to show, and particularly to end our trainings, because it's very hopeful, and it shows really, again, how families and kids can change dramatically, and in some cases really change their whole lives with some of the work that we help them to do. So that is really the best, kind of speaks for itself. It's kind of a good note to end on. And if there are questions that you've emailed, or maybe, that you've entered in that we didn't get a full answer to or didn't have time for, please don't hesitate to email me directly. And the follow-up email will have that. The email from the ATTC will have my email, and I'd love to hear from you. And we really want to emphasize how important it is to do the evaluation of the webinar, because it gives us feedback. Obviously, we can improve our trainings, and also it gives the ATTCs more information, and they need to come back with their evaluation reports for funding reports and things like that. We also ask that you make sure that you've provided your snail mail address, because our center can then send out materials to you that we've referred to, and maybe you can email us, and then we'll have your information on file. So thank you so much. I think we're out of time, and it was just such a pleasure to talk with you about MDFT, and hope to hear from you. Take care. Thank you.